Elul is a month-long holiday, or Hol month, that marks the end of one Jewish year and helps to transition into the beginning of a new one. Traditionally, it is a month of introspection, contemplation, and personal growth. Untraditionally, or at least less traditionally, Elul Unbound is a digital initiative offering up a wide variety of avenues for experimenting over the course of this month. Sign up to join Elul Unbound's email list and learn more about all of Elul Unbound's offerings by heading to judaismunbound.com/ELUL. This is a special bonus edition of Judaism Unbound. Elul Unbound 23. Happy Tues-Year! Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lex Rofberg.
And I'm Wendy Bernstein-Lash.
And we're down to business today. We've got our second Elul Unbound episode of this wonderful month of Elul, the final month of the previous year or the current year, final month that serves as an on-ramp into the next year. And Elul Unbound is our magical initiative where we, Judaism Unbounders, spread all over the place, engage with this month of introspection through all sorts of different modalities, through Zoom gatherings, through podcasts like this, through written text, through videos, through whatever calls to us. And today is our second amazing chance to talk about Elul and to talk about this particular Elul in the third year of the Shemitah cycle and see how we can channel it. So, Wendy, last time we spoke a little bit about the particulars of a third year in the sabbatical cycle, the Shemitah cycle, Jewishly. We talked about Maaser Oni, this tithe for the poor, and how we could take this year to really focus on serving those who are impoverished and creating a world where fewer would be impoverished. How might we think about 3, not just through its Jewish resonances, through this Maaser Oni third year thing, but more broadly?
It's funny. When I was a little kid, 3 was my favorite number. So here we are talking about 3s. And, when I think about it, I think of like a tripod, which is a really sturdy mechanism versus we're humans. We stand on 2 legs. We can kind of topple over easily. I wish we had a third leg sometimes, be a little bit more balanced. But something that's got 3 is got a sturdiness to it. And so I'm jazzed about 3s. As I said, it's my favorite number. It's more than doing something again. It's not quite we're nowhere near the full Shemitah cycle, but so how can we energize this third year and also think about 3s, maybe opening it up in a new way?
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to hold what you said about not being close to the end of the Shemitah cycle a little bit. What I think is important about the third year in a cycle of 7, this is kind of the first year that tendencies of, oh, this is really kind of boring me, and so I'm going to tune out and wait till the next Shemitah cycle. Like, I don't know, whenever I do anything, looking for it to be a pattern and repeated, the first time is fresh. Oh my gosh, we're doing like a totally new thing. The second time is still a little bit fresh, but you're like, okay, I'm getting used to it. And the third, it's sort of like the test year of like whether you're really interested in having something be a practice that you sit with continually. And so this relationship to the Shemitah cycle, this relationship to the flow of Jewish time beyond just within a year, but between years, the third year is where we test it. The third year is where we will find out whether this is really something that we're embracing as a continuous Jewish practice, or if it's rather something that we're going to hold in the Shemitah year, shortly before it, shortly after, and then kind of forget until the next time around. So I think it's kind of critical that we hold that third year. I also think that there's something about 3s, forgetting Jewish stuff, where a 3 kind of makes something complete. Like a lot of phrases, it's like lions and tigers and bears, oh bye. Like once you have 3, I don't know, 3 is a crowd, right? Like it's a real creation at that point. It's not just something we've done once. Like if you do a ritual once, okay, you tried something new once. If you do it a second time, sweet. You have a trajectory where it could be something you do repeatedly. When you do something a third time, that's really like you have instantiated that reality. This is now a pattern. I think that 3s allow us to consider what it is to take the ways we want to be in the world from, okay, this is something I do sometimes, to this is actually something that I build into the flow of my life. I've talked on past Elul Unbounds about my own relationship to giving blood. When you do that every 8 weeks and you've done it like 3 times, I feel like you have created a reality where that's something that you're going to do as a patterned basis. There's all those studies about how you have to do something like 27 times for it to really take hold. I do think that 3 is at least a marker that you could be on that path.
I was also thinking about just bringing in a little bit of Judaism that I didn't in the first episode is we have in Judaism Hol HaMoed, which is these intervening days. And we say that those have a special uniqueness to them.
In
right?
holidays, just to be clear, This is great. Like within like the 7 days or 8, depending on how you practice, of Passover and Sukkot, those middle days are not quote unquote Yom Tov with like certain extra rules, but they're still powerful.
Yeah. And so it's like we're in the in-between beginnings and ends, as you said, have a strong energy. And this is an opportunity to kind of say, yeah, that middle that could be something that trails off or I'm not as focused. Let me give it its special uniqueness. Let me invite in, okay, it's not the beginning and it's not the end. It's 3. It's like I'm in my groove here. I don't have to try to take something new on and I'm not finishing off something. I think it's something that we could pay more attention to in our lives. Like, what are the middle times? What are the third time we do something? And can it just be, yeah, this is nice. This feels easier than when I tried to take something on the first time.
That's a really good point. And you're giving me an idea for a practice. This happens every year. You always say beautiful things that help me actually apply the ideas we're talking about to like how I want to make a reality ritually and otherwise this Elul and this year. So what you've just taken me to is I think we actually have a weekly example of what it is like to be in this murky middle, in this not quite there kind of space that you and I are both talking about. And that's Tuesday. We have a flow of 7 days of the week that in the past we've talked about maybe we could parallel that to the 7 years of the Shemitah cycle. Making Shabbat or just Saturday, for getting Jewish, like making that special, it's great and it's important. It's unbelievably important. It's easier than making Tuesday, which is the 3rd day of the week if we start Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I get that for some folks you think of Mondays, but like in Hebrew, Tuesday is Yom Shlishi, 3rd day, so it parallels directly 3rd year. I'm going to actually take each Tuesday of this month of Elul to have 10 minutes of time that I'm going to put in my calendar right after we record. I'm not going to plan it too much. I don't know what it will be, but I'm going to have 10 minutes where I'm going to try and really be in Tuesday mode. Like Tuesday is a hard part of the week. Like you can't make the excuse that you can on Monday of like, oh, I'm just getting rolling again, so I'm not going to get that much done. You're in the week, but you're nowhere near the finish line. It's like in high school, I remember in cross country, like once you hit that first mile mark, it was like, oh, like this middle portion is going to be brutal. I'm not kicking. I'm not doing like my sprint at the end yet. The second part is where you determine whether you're going to have a good race or not, because you're either going to put in that really hard work or you're going to sit back a little, maybe a little too much, and then save up all your energy for the kick at the end. And that's like not focusing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday, really trying to have a big work day or whatever it is. So I'm going to take those 10 minutes on Tuesday and try to be in like that middle to understand where I am in the flow of that week. And that's the flow that I want to consider for this coming whole year. We're in a Tues-Year. It's confusing because that sounds like the number 2, but and if you said Thues-Year, then it's like Thursday. Like there's no good way. We're in a 3rd year, which is like a Tuesday on the calendar. And so I think it's a year to focus on sustaining newness or freshness. I have a weird analogy. When you throw a disc golf disc, when you throw a frisbee, every disc has flight characteristics. There's the speed, which means its initial speed out of your hand. And then the second statistic is called glide. And glide refers to how well a particular disc, a particular frisbee, like how long it maintains that initial speed, or how well it maintains that initial speed. And certain discs maintain the speed more effectively than others. It doesn't make them better. It just makes them go farther. And the ones that maintain their speed not as well, they don't go as far, but they're better for accuracy. So this is a glide year. This is where we think about like, how do we sustain, like if we had a glorious Shemitah a few years ago, maybe people listening didn't, but like if we did and we had these various intentions about how we would relate to the flow of time, this is a check-in year. This is where it's kind of going to continue to endure. It's going to glide, or it's going to fade and fall into the ground. It's not a sexy year. It's not. Tuesday is not a day that people would rank as their favorite day of the week. Almost anyone, I don't think. But it's a day that can play a key role in determining how, successful. I don't want to talk about production. It's not how productive the week is, but how meaningful a week is. That Tuesday, or that Tues-Year in this case, is important.
Well, I always get things from you too. So thank you. I love thinking about this as a Tuesday year. And I love it's the Tuesday of Shemitah. And I love also the sense of the glide, because that's what I was thinking about as well. This is about learning how to be sustaining. And it's not about the big bump in the beginning and the big push to get to the end, but how we sustain ourselves and how we sustain the planet and how we sustain our energy. So much is put on these beginnings and endings. And what we're inviting people to do is to focus on this sustaining part, this which you might not even think about. Oh, I'm just waiting for the next Shemitah to happen, and to give some intentionality to the year of, oh, I'm learning to work, I'm building the muscles of sustaining something over a really long period of time, 7 years. The gift of focusing on what it's like to sustain. I will say I had a friend once call me a front loader, and she's very, very true. So this is really important and powerful for me. I love starting things. I love creating things. And I have to work really hard on the energy of keeping it going, keeping it going. I'm a serial entrepreneur. The fact that we've been doing this for 7 years is like, woohoo, I got one more thing I've been doing for a long period of time. But I know that that's a weak area for me. And to be able to say, oh, I have an intentionality for this year. Yeah, this is not the supercharged first year or even the second year. I get to do it again and maybe do it a little bit better, or it's not the ending year. This is the year that I'm going to learn and focus on what it's like to just continue to sustain and be happy with that and feel like that is complete and that is enough. And it's actually really wonderful.
Absolutely. I'm going to cheat because our last episode was about like Jewish symbologies of the number 3 more than general. And today is like, we're talking about Tuesday, which is like a secular kind of day. I want to bring in some more Jewishly layered 3s because I think it will help to illustrate something. That way in which 3 makes something a practice, or it makes it, a thing that we do, as opposed to like, oh, there's 2 instances of X, Y, or Z. Like 3 is like, oh, there's 3 pilgrimage festivals. That sort of makes it clear that for the Torah, and those are Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, the act of pilgrimaging is like a key act of biblical practice. It's something that you do at enough points in the year that it's really meant to be part of the flow of your life. One 3 that people don't know a lot about is that for the blessing after the meals, there's actually, like, people know that if you have 10 people gathered, you can say certain prayers. There's this notion of a minyan, right? There's actually a 3-person version of that. So if you have 3 people gathered for a meal, that makes your gathering a certain status. So you say certain blessings afterwards. If you have only 1 person or 2 people, it's literally 3 is a crowd by Jewish law. 3 becomes a crowd. And when you're a crowd, you have to say certain blessings. Now, I don't care if people listening to this go and say those blessings. Like, maybe that's a cool practice to like engage with the blessing after the meals. I mostly mean like, what if we really took notice of when we were in a group of 3 people as opposed to by ourselves or with one other? Or if we notice the 3rd time we do something, it is in many ways like part of the implicit structure of how Jewish law works. And the last one I'll mention is maybe the most famous. When on Passover, there's that like numerical song that people sing, Achad mi yodea, who knows one? And like you say something for 12, 11, 10, 9, every number you connect to something Jewish. In that song, it's usually said 3 are the fathers, like Shlosha Avot. That means Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I think about it not just as fathers, but as 3 ancestral generations. There are 3 fathers, 4 mothers, or 6 mothers, really, if you look at the text closely. But the important thing is, for the book of Genesis, you need 3 generations to really sort of set the stage for the Jewish people to then gel into a people. Like, that's the flow, right? There's all sorts of generations from Adam to Noah. There's like 10 generations from Adam to Noah, and then there's Noah to Abraham. Abraham and Sarah are the first generation of, in the Torah, Israelites. They will become Jews eventually in the flow of history. And you need the Abraham-Sarah generation, the Rebecca-Isaac generation, the Leah, Rachel, Jacob, and Zilpah and Bilhah, the other mothers, generation. That's 3 generations. And once you've done that, you have sort of done enough groundwork to start to gel a people together. That's why the children of Jacob and the children of Rachel, Leah, Zilpah, and Bilhah, those children are no longer just themselves. They become the tribes. Zebulun, Issachar, like, it's sort of grown enough and established itself enough with 3 generations that it's now a thing. It's not just a set of people or a family. It's becoming the next level. So I'm curious, Wendy, if as we close, you have any thoughts on that sort of 3 generations or other ways in which 3 serve this kind of completion role of sending a message, oh, this is real.
Actually, what's coming to me is like where we started and where we're ending is that I just have this like intuitive sense that 3s are really powerful and magical for human beings. As you said, we say lions, tigers, and bears. We have 3 generations. I remember when I was taking some kind of creative writing class, they talked about doing things in 3s. There must be something intrinsic to human beings that 3 is powerful because it resonates with us. It feels like a completion. And so I just think we've tapped into some kind of power of 3 here that we didn't even know we were going to be raising up. I mean, if I was a sociologist, I would probably go study this, but the sense that 3s can be super powerful, and they are, and they're kind of baked into us, but we haven't been paying attention to it, and how powerful this 3rd year can be to re-elevate and reconnect with that energy of 3s. That's what's coming to me. How about you?
What's funny is I'm like smiling to myself, because if we were in a room talking about 3s with Jews and also Christians, I think the Christians would have a lot to say about 3s.
Yeah.
Like the Trinity, I mean, and also even, there's debates within Christianity about Trinitarian and Unitarian and 3s and 1s and which framework is the most accurate or most helpful way to orient to what God is. I'm not here to voice support for the Trinity. Like, that's not something that I ascribe to. And there's a reason why it's a Trinity and not a quadridy or like a group of 4. Like there is something magical. It's the right word. There's something to 3s that I don't think it's just like, maybe somebody really smart could give me like an articulate scientific argument for why that 3 holds power. I kind of like holding it a little mystically of like, 3s are just a little magic. 3 does something that 2 can't, and 4, 5, 6, like 4, 5, like you're at a new threshold with 3. And my hope for this year is that we can hold the ways in which this 3 is like, I don't know, an achievement. Like we have reached that threshold in the Shemitah cycle. And we can notice the ways in which specifically that 3rd year is actually not a completion. Like this is where we, like I said about the 2nd mile of the cross-country race or whatever, we're only entering, I don't know, what's the fraction? Like 2/7 is like 28 and change percent. 3/7 is 42 and change percent. We're not even halfway through. And so holding the tension between we're achieving something grand, we've been in this now for a 3rd year, And we've got so much more to go. That feels like the perfect teshuvah moment. Like we can hold the ways in which we have grown as people and all the work we need to continue to do. So I think that's the closing note for this conversation. I really want to invite folks who have not yet signed up for our Elul email list to go to judaismunbound.com/Elul, E-L-U-L. And there's a big button to sign up for the email list. We'd love to have you journey with us. We have Zoom gatherings coming up that you can attend. There's information about those at the same link. We would love for you to be in touch with us with any feedback or ideas or whatever you've got related to Elul. And so you can email us at elul@judaismunbound.com. That will go to me and to Wendy. Before we go, I wanted to quickly give a shout out to a new fiction podcast that's coming out soon. It's an audio drama about a young woman who travels to Berlin on a journey of Jewish self-discovery and finds herself thrust into a geopolitical crisis when Holocaust victims start rising from mass graves as zombies. As anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and nationalist protests break out, the protagonist realizes nobody is listening to the zombies themselves, one of whom is not only peaceful, but mysteriously drawn to her. It's produced by the Canadian Jewish News in association with the Ashkenaz Foundation. Check it out at thecjn.ca/zombies. So thanks so much for listening, and with that, this has been Judaism Unbound.